Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Haunt of Love and Lies. Episode 15. Chapter 134. Unknown person's point of view. I was dying to see her after she's been caught and thrown in the dungeon in a state worse than a prisoner. But I just couldn't be careless and get caught. Killian had eyes on the dungeon and I couldn't risk getting caught. So, I had no choice but to wait until there was a shift in the guards, before the first light of dawn. I had volunteered to keep watch over Thea's dungeon with a few warriors. After a while of guarding outside the dungeon, I turned to the warriors and told them I had to go check on the prisoner. I pulled the large dungeon doors open, stalking through the narrow passage down to where another tall door was. Gently, I unlocked it open with a spare key, jerking it open, and my eyes instantly fell on my mate. It broke my heart completely to see her confined against the chair like some kind of monster. I walked in, but her eyes were closed. As if sensing my presence, she breathed out. "What are you doing here?" she bit out ragingly, almost annoyed. "It hurts me to see you like this, Thea, especially not in the condition you are in. Remember, you are still expecting my child," I started, but before I could go any further, she hushed me immediately. "Enough of that same old nonsense. Don't you know Killian is dying to find out who my lover is? What rubbish idea was this, coming here?" She shot back coldly as usual. Her words pierced my heart. My wolf couldn't stand it. I didn't know which was worse, seeing her in this condition or knowing deep down she really didn't care about me the way I do. But regardless, she was my destined mate, and if this was the curse I had to bear, then I had no choice. "I could set you free. The warriors on duty will be easy to dismiss. Before Killian finds out we are gone," we'd already left the capital, and crossed over to another region, I suggested like I'd done countless times, but my words were only greeted by a cold grunt. "Seriously, again with that nonsense? So, your big plan is to escape? I can't believe this rubbish." She sounded harsh. "I've been caught. And Killian has found out everything about me. Every single thing. Do you think this is the best time to turn back now?" She was yelling, and I was thankful for the long hallways before the main dungeon gate. At least, no one could hear us. "Lower your voice," I uttered, but she didn't listen, and continued when I was obviously not going to respond to her question. "No. This isn't the best time to back out now. More than ever, I want Killian to pay for everything he's done, and for putting me in here like I was some kind of disgusting wolf." She was vibrating with rage and dark hatred. "I will see to it that pays for what he's done to me, and for that, you will help me." She paused when I didn't say anything. "I am your mate, so you have no choice but to help me, otherwise, your stupid alpha is going to kill me and your sweet child." I inhaled deeply. I didn't want to put my pup in harm's way. "Never. What do you need?" Her dark smile appeared. "Firstly, I need Lucius," she voiced. "I can't use any magic here, so I'll have to wait." "Send word to Lucius. Tell him about my situation. Lucius will attack, Thea. This will be an all-out war, many people will lose their lives," I said. Thea was my mate, but I couldn't deny this was my pack as well. And many would not survive this. What the heck is your problem? Must you seriously complain about everything? Her smile vanished from her lips, and only rage reflected in her brown eyes. With these flimsy emotions. It's either those wolves you call family or your actual family, which is me, and don't forget your child too. If you really want the family you want, help me destroy Killian. It doesn't matter who he is to you, remember this child and I come first. And the second thing you need? I questioned, after long seconds of thinking. I rubbed my palm against my face. Thea's sick smile returned. And I knew whatever was brewing in her mind was something wicked and dark. I need you to send a word to them, she counted her words cautiously, smiling in such a dark, yet beautiful way. I creased my brows. Who's them? It was as the words left my lips, I realized who them was. It was the Dark Circle. Thea has been trying to send word to them that Sheila was right here in Killian's pack, but since no one knows the true location of the Dark Lord himself, that was next to impossible. But she found a way to reach out to him through affiliated kingdoms and packs that are a member of the Circle. This was not good in any way. No, Thea. It's one thing for Lucius to attack with his army and it's another thing to bring them here. I moved closer to her. That would be a fatal disaster. I agree with you. Lucius is here to make Killian suffer, while she will experience a far worse fate in their hands. She was smiling as if imagining it all. You are crazy, I voiced out, backing against the wall. Yes, but I'm still your destined mate. Never forget that, she forced through gritted teeth, and I sighed, wondering why the goddess had resigned me to this fate. Can't we just leave Luna out of this? I asked, and Thea's angry brown flames ignited in her eyes. She is the reason I am locked here. She has to pay for everything. And besides, she's the perfect punishment for Killian. It'll hurt him badly, she spoke emotionlessly. Thea, mates aren't tools for punishment. I know Killian killed your parents, but it wasn't his fault. Thane was as crazy as Nell, I began, but was cut off by Thea as her loud shrill pierced through my words. Shut that hole you call a mouth. I can't believe you, of all people, would say that to me. You know exactly what I've been through. There was an instant tug in my chest, seeing the tears that gathered in Thea's eyes. That look was the same she wore the day she appeared at the pack, looking as though she was being chased. I had to find out through the worst possible way that my mate was the gifted one destined to stand next to Killian and free us from the curse. I couldn't live with that. I knew I had to tell Killian Thea was my mate, but when I met with her at her chamber, she insisted I didn't. She wanted Killian by her side at all costs. Then she told me her story and made me choose. It was either I helped her, or she would kill herself the instant Killian had an idea who she was. And I chose her. I knew that was stupid, standing against my family. But I had no choice. Thea was my mate, and I was compelled to help her. I know, I replied to her, gently, pulling my hand to her bruised face and blood-smeared neck. She winced in pain at my touch. Your supposed family, Killian, did that to me. Would Killian be okay if someone had done this to his mate? Another round of spark ignited in her eyes. That's enough, Thea. Just promise me one thing, I said, and she almost rolled her eyes as if knowing what I was about to say. But I didn't care. I continued. As soon as all this is over, we are leaving, Thea. For good. I swear, you, our pup, and I will start a new life, together. I crouched next to her chair. She nodded. Whatever you say, mate. Just do as I say first. All right, I was up, stalking the humid and cold floors of the dungeon. And the court? Has Killian and those imbeciles decided on my fate yet? She asked, and I drew in a quick breath. I didn't want to think about that. I couldn't bear the thought of them deciding to execute Thea. They would, if the situation was different and Thea wasn't pregnant. But I'm hoping they don't. I know Killian, and he wasn't so heartless to murder an innocent child, regardless of what Thea has done. No. Hopefully, they'll settle on a lighter punishment, I said, moving to the door. I peeked outside at the narrow passage. There was no one there. I turned to Thea. I have to go, I said, regretfully. Whatever, just make sure you don't fail me, she muttered, shutting her eyes closed. I sighed, exiting the dungeon. Frankly, Thea was utterly right. Sometimes these mate bonds were a curse in itself. Sheila's point of view: it was quite early at dawn before the sun came up that I went to see Thea in her dungeon. As soon as I stepped in, she lazily pulled her eyes open and her lucent brown eyes fell on me. I was expecting you. I knew you'd come to gloat. She sounded venomous, but her voice was still sharp. I thought by now she must have realized the serious trouble she was in, but it is obvious she hasn't. I countered the spell Valerie had placed in the dungeon, ensuring no magic could be used inside. But Thea's spelled shackles confining her to her chair were more than enough to keep her magic locked up. I turned to the door and muttered a few chants, making sure nothing that happens in here escapes this room. Not even an echo. I moved closer to her in my leather boots. I was just returning from the training field and I decided to meet Thea as Killian requested. I would love to, only you are not worth it, Thea, I said. I really didn't have the time for whatever mind games she wanted to play. I came here for a reason, to see if I'd be able to get through her mind and find out about Lucius. Thea's words from last night had worried me throughout the night. I had to know what Lucius was up to. So, why are you here? She spat, almost chuckling. Has the court already decided on my fate? She rushed in a mocking tone. But I didn't respond. Well, that was fast and smart, because the second I am out of here, I am going to have their hearts out of their chests. Your threats don't scare anyone, Thea. You've been caught and exposed already for who you are. All that is left now is for you to tell me exactly what Lucius is planning, I muttered slowly as I lowered myself to her sitting position. Another round of laughter left her lips. And how would you do that? By breaking into my mind. She was shaking her head amusingly. I'm a witch, stupid. Do you think I had never prepared myself for that? She sounded again, ever so confident. I had prepared myself for that, and the only thing you'll find in there is rotten darkness. You'll never be able to see anything else, I swear. A shallow smile found my lips. And I was up, regarding her quietly. I guess we will have to see about that. But I'll have to warn you, I only just created this spell, and you are my very first, so it'll hurt like nothing you've ever experienced in your miserable and pathetic life, Thea. You should prepare yourself for that. I drew closer to her ears, whispering. My eyes met with Thea's and there was an instant glint of fear in them. My smile deepened as my hands cupped her head, focusing on her temples. My blue eyes penetrated hers, and I began chanting, never leaving Thea's fearful brown eyes. It didn't take long before her screaming filled the air from the unbearable pain she was feeling. She was right. She had spelled her mind, ensuring no one barged through. But I could find my way around it. After prodding deeper, I began to see broken fragments of Thea's early memories from her childhood. I concentrated deeper on what I was looking for, Lucius, flashing through her memories with or about him, journeying to the present. And there, I found it. Thea had sent a message to Lucius. He was in the west, gathering his army. We already knew that. I prodded deeper and found out he was going to attack in a few days. Her memories were in broken pieces and vague. I stumbled upon another memory where she was in bed with someone and was talking to that person. I couldn't see his face quite clearly, but it wasn't Killian. It was her lover. I moved past it, hurrying to her recent memories past the time I fought her, and when Killian had spoken to her in the dungeon. I was getting to the end of her memories so far, and suddenly, I froze. The face I had never expected flashed through Thea's mind. I went after him but Thea was fighting back, pushing me out of her mind. No. It couldn't be. He was her lover, and he was here to see her. I couldn't get past every word in their conversation, but I had gotten what I came here for. I jerked out of her mind. Thea was already bleeding profusely from her nose. What did you see? She yelled, fighting against the shackles as I backed away. There's no way you'll win this war, Thea. Much to my delight, your end is closer than you think, I voiced, turning to the door. I will end you. I'll kill you. I paid no mind to Thea's words. I placed Valerie's spell in order and lifted mine before finally leaving the dungeon. Killian was already waiting for me outside. How did it go? He asked the second I was out, and we began strolling to the castle. We have to be prepared, Killian. Word has been sent to Lucius last night. He's attacking tonight, I informed Killian, as he snaked his hands around my waist. We will be prepared, he started, but I stopped him. That's not all, I continued. I know who Thea's lover is. Killian's brows were crippled with curiosity. And trust me, you won't like it. Who is he? He spoke slowly, already guessing from the visit Thea had this morning. We knew somehow Thea's lover would find a way to see her, so Killian had no choice but to monitor the warrior's shift himself. There were no recorded visits, but only one warrior had briefly stepped inside to see Thea. It's him, isn't it? He's the traitor in our midst the whole time. I never thought he could betray me like this. Killian was vibrating with rage, but his voice was surprisingly calm. Thea isn't just his lover, Killian, Thea is his mate, I added. What? I nodded. She's his mate and she's having his pup. That's not possible. I was with Thea for months, how on earth was he able to bear that? He sounded. What are you going to do now? I asked, and Killian sighed, turning to me. We'll take care of Lucius first, and then, I'll personally deal with him." He kissed me, and we walked into the castle. Killian called for a meeting with the court and warriors, informing them of Lucius' sudden attack tonight. I informed Valerie about this as well, and what we found out about Thea's mate. We didn't know what he would do now, knowing we are aware of Lucius' sudden attack, so I placed a few witches to watch his every move and ensure there was no communication between Thea's mate and Lucius in any way. While Lorenzo and I went around the pack's territorial borders and strengthened the boundary spells. Ria, Nate, and some of the warriors helped prepare the underground casements in the castle to house the women, children, and elderlies that won't be fighting in the war tonight. We also brought in the women, children, and elderlies from the village pack. We had no idea how far the fight would spread. Hopefully, if everything goes as planned, Lucius' armies wouldn't be able to make it far to the castle and pack house. The hours went by in a hurry, forcing the sun out of the sky. It was already twilight. And any second from now, Lucius's armies would attack. Frankly, the pack's armies would be outnumbered by Lucius's armies since he had gathered warriors from several allied packs of his. But our first line of defense was the witches. Hopefully, we could cut down the number of Lucius's armies before they made it to our borders. I was at the witch spell room in the witch's quarters when Kaiser walked in. I lifted my head in surprise, gazing behind him. "No one saw me come through," he said before I could even utter a word. I went to him and embraced him. "Leonardo wants to find out why you didn't send word about Lucius's attack." He spoke. It had escaped my mind with everything going on today. I roved to the window. "I can understand that, Sheila, but you have to be careful. Remember, as much as Lucius is coming after that, he's after you too," Kaiser muttered, and I nodded. "I know. But I can't abandon my pack and mate. And besides, I have a good feeling about this war, and Lucius will finally pay for everything he has done to us." I turned to Kai. "And for that, I need both you and Leonardo's help." Kai rolled his eyes, furiously. "No. We are not joining this war against Lucius to help your mate." Kai, I was about to plead more when several golden bright glows appeared in the sky. From afar it looked like balls of fire, but on a second look, it wasn't. They were fireballs scattered in the sky, and some were heading straight at us. "Kai!" I yelled in fear as it got larger in my crystal blue stones. "Sheila's point of view, Kai!" I yelled in fear, at the fireballs scattered in the sky aiming for different parts of the pack. This was going to cause great destruction and deaths. I left Kai and turned for the door. I hurried out of the court, stepping into the night's darkness and blue sky as one of the fireballs headed for the witch's quarters. I used my magic and held its force, redirecting it back to where it was coming from. I glanced around. Some of the fireballs were redirected by the witch scattered around in the pack while some exploded against the earth, causing destruction. I turned to Kai. "Lucius has resources and we are clearly outnumbered. Help us, Kai, please. We need witches, warriors, and resources, otherwise, Lucius will win," I said, trying to convince my brother into helping the pack. "Sheila," I could hear him curse under his breath. His deep loving hazel eyes fell on me, regarding me. "Stay with the witches, Sheila. I'll see what I can do." A small smile fell on my lips. Thea's point of view I held on tightly. Shutting my eyes closed. I knew it was only a matter of time before Lucius struck and the entire pack fell into ruins. I couldn't stop the blissful smile that left my lips. Whatever plans Lucius had for Killian, I would gladly accept it. I had never thought I would be able to find someone who hated Killian as much as I did. Lucius despised Killian to the core, and his only drive and goal has always been to conquer Killian's pack and make his life a living hell. My smile deepened as I envisioned Killian's demise at the end of this war. It didn't take me by surprise when I heard hasty steps draw closer to the dungeon and the door jerked open in hurry. I pulled my eyes open and they landed on my lover. He moved with speed to my side. The war has begun. Lucius and his army have begun to attack. We must leave amidst the chaos going on in the pack. Killian won't even realize our escape until it's too late. I crinkle my perfect thick brows as he spilled his nonsense while unbinding the chains that confined me to this chair. And with one last pull, I was completely free. I smiled to myself, flexing my fingers and massaging my wrists. I was up from the chair, feeling my aching legs and sore feet. "Where's Killian?" I asked sharply. "Outside," he muttered. "And Peesh?" "I don't know. Maybe at the witch's quarters," he replied again. And I smiled. "Just great." I sidestepped him, but he gripped my arm almost immediately. "Where are you going?" He rushed stupidly that I couldn't stop myself from rolling my eyes. "We are in the middle of a war. I want to find that her and teach her a lesson first." "Don't worry. I won't kill her, the Dark Lord himself will do the honors." I walked away to the door, but he hurried behind me and gripped me again just as we stepped outside the dungeon into the rocky narrow path. "No, Thea. You are pregnant. And you promised we'll be out of here the second Lucius attacks," he muttered, and angrily, I stole my arm back from him. "Stop. I'm never leaving this place. Lucius would win this war. And what do you think? That I would walk out of the opportunity of seeing Killian and his mutts in this rotten dungeon? Well, dearest, no. I'm not leaving," I couldn't stop myself from shouting. He was being his usual annoying self. I looked away from him, inhaling deeply. I was really free, I could feel my magic now. "Thea, you are pregnant," he began, but I abruptly cut through his words. "Enough with that rubbish. This little thing's magic inside of me will be useful in destroying that Peesh. You should be proud of your pup. I would channel its magic and end our enemies." "Are you crazy? It'll kill him," he muttered, eyes blazing with a rage I had never seen in his eyes. "Well, if that's the case, so be it," I replied back. I didn't have the time for this. He should be elated I haven't gotten rid of the imbecile within me yet. I mean, I was greatly tempted to. At least this way, he would die being useful. I took the narrow path and burst outside the dungeon gates. My eyes fell on the blood and unconscious bodies of the warriors stationed outside the dungeon. I turned to him, his eyes blinded with rage. "You should have killed them. Thea, I won't let you use that child for such nonsense," he sounded, and I laughed. "How will you stop me?" I said in between laughs, my face suddenly hardening. "Don't be stupid. I will not hesitate one bit to end your miserable life, along with him you call a child." Don't make me furious, or you'll regret it. You'll be incapable of doing that. I am your mate. Do you realize how stupid you sound? Let me spell this out for you clearly. I only needed you because I was after Killian, and you were T to fall for everything I said before I could finish speaking. He grabbed me by the neck and slammed me against the wall. But it only made me laugh harder. You are crazy and despicable, Thea. Did you only realize it now? Let go of me, I know you can't kill me. I'm your mate after all, isn't it? I smiled in satisfaction watching as he wrestled between his rage for me, and whatever these crazy mate bond made him feel for me. Soon, he pulled away. Good boy. Now find Killian and deliver him straight to Lucius, I ordered, sauntering away. I had more important things to attend to. I could already hear the loud growls and chaos from outside the walls. I took a glance at my dress. It was all dirty, but it'll do. I used the quickest path out of the castle, taking the woods to the witch's quarters to find her. But I didn't have to go that far as my eyes noticed her under the moonlit sky. She was pretty occupied, fighting alongside the witches. That way, she was able to make use of her magic. I moved behind the shade of tall trees, aiming for her. My hands fell on my flat stomach, and I began to chant under my breath. I needed all the magic I could get to put her in her place. I could only hope I won't be tempted to end her life just yet. My eyes glowed brightly as I could gain access to the magic and life growing within me. And my eyes landed on her once more, and using my magic, I pulled her from the fight, deep into the woods where it'll be just me and her. I rushed deeper into the woods, just in time to watch her land steadily on the earth. Sheila's glowing blue eyes fell on me. Thea, she called. She was anything but surprised. I was wondering what was taking you so long. I didn't know you missed me. I took several steps closer to her, when suddenly, a ring of blue fire, matching hers blue crystals, encircled us. This doesn't scare me, I bit out, regarding her. Well, it should, Thea. Because you are not stepping out alive. I promise, she voiced slowly, and in an instant, attacked me. I blocked swiftly, balancing quickly when she attacked violently again. She fiercely shot magical waves of energy at me, but I swiftly evaded them. She was really aiming to kill. I retaliated, sending back with a series of fiery attacks, but she just dismissed every one of my attacks with ease. I never expected her to be this strong, but I wasn't going to give up. I drew every single dark energy that I could conjure up to create lightning at her, but she easily dodged it, and in an instant, I felt a rough push, sending me crashing deeper into the woods. My whole body ached from the impact of the push. And there was the tramp. Her eyes glowed furiously as she stood before me with a knowing smile on her lips. With movements of her fingers, she lifted me up and tossed me around from one end to another like a weightless rag doll. I could feel blood trickle down from my forehead as I cried for it to be over, and then it was. I could feel her squeezing my windpipe as I struggled and gasped for air. In an instant, she moved with speed, using her wolf's speed, grabbing me by the throat. I was so close to her that I could see the enormous magical energy radiating off her. When Sheila's hold on me weakened and her eyes furrowed. "You despicable thing, I can't believe you're killing your own child," she muttered, and I immediately used the opportunity to free myself from her, using my magic to send her flying across the yard. But she found her balance and landed gracefully on her boots. A smile found my lips, and instantly, I was blasted against the tree by surprise. The blue fire around surrounded me, and Sheila took hold of my body, lifting me in the air. I screamed in pain as I felt my insides crush hard against each other. It was as if my bones were contorting. She dropped me down carelessly, while I was left struggling for air. I watched as she conjured up water from thin air and then turned them into solid razor-sharp icicles, aiming them at me. "No, don't do this," I cried, as thousands of ice impaled me, and it was as though my soul had vanished from my body. Killian's point of view, my amber orbs gleamed a dangerous shade of red, my vision glowed red as well. I made full use of my wolf's side, plucking out the heads of Lucius's rogues and witches that attacked. My sharp elongated nails dripped with their disgusting thick crimson blood. I pulled out the heart of an rogue coming at me, my eyes flickered to Alan and Jax in a fight with rogues as well. My claws were dripping wet. I glanced around as my army fought against Lucius's army. It was already dead in the night, and the foul odor of blood and stench of death mixed with the midnight air. "We've been fighting for quite some time, but so far, there's been no sign of Lucius." I tried mind-linking Sheila, but it was not connecting. I was getting worried. I left in search of her. I knew she had to be at the witch's quarters, fighting alongside the witches, at least, that way, she would be able to use her magic. I was racing through the woods, my body and bare chest smeared with blood. I was almost at the quarters when I felt and heard the fast movements against the trees. It caused me to halt instantly. And immediately, I had a hunch who it could be. Lucius. I was sharing partial control with Riker. My inner wolf eyes scanned the surroundings, and I noticed two shadows against the trees in the darkness. "Come on, Lucius, the least you could do is face me." I yelled into the darkness, and I heard a few sounds from behind. I swirled around and it fell on him I'd been wanting to see. But he wasn't alone. He had company. It was a woman, and from the manner she was dressed, I reckoned she was a witch. I walked deeper into the large meadow with the moon dancing from its tall tower. The woman in a black cloak took a few steps forward as well, prepared to fight. And I was prepared as well with my claws out. I had to get past her to get to the imbecile smirking delightfully behind her. The woman moved so fast and speedily, as she instantly created a blasting force with her magic and directed it at me. Before it could hit me, I felt a sharp movement move from behind me, stopping a few feet in front of me. It was Lorenzo, and I couldn't be happier to see him. He used his magic to create some kind of shield, protecting us from the witch's force, and immediately, he created a force of his, directing it to the witch who was unable to block swiftly. The force threw her against the tree, but she was up quickly. Lorenzo tilted his head to me, nodding, informing me he would take care of the witch. A smile spread on my lips, as my eyes narrowed on Lucius, who had retreated into the woods. I leapt in the air, using my wolf's abilities. I moved swiftly against the trees, tailing Lucius, and I got him. I crashed hard against him unexpectedly, flipping and tossing him against the tree, but he was quick to take control of his body and landed gracefully on his leather boots before crashing. The bright moon glowed radiantly from the sky, illuminating the sick, disgusting smirk on Lucius's lips. "Killian Reed," he positioned himself before me, his voice holding venom and eyes gleaming darkly. I had never imagined Lucius' ruthlessness and apparent greed could take him this far. The feud between us had always existed since the second I took the reins of the pack. We both had the largest pack in the whole of North Central, and Lucius hated it. He had always wanted to conquer my territory as he did successfully to thousands, and he was mistaken to think he could ever succeed. I was burning with rage for so many reasons, amongst which was what this imbecile had done to Sheila all her years of being in his pack. And I was on making him suffer for that too. "You think you can take me on, boy?" He was still smiling and I hated the loose smile on his disgusting lips. "Stop talking, Lucius," I bit out calmly, despite my rage. Lucius' sharp claws extended from his hands, as I lunged at him, but he was swift to dodge. His sharp claws grabbed me by my neck, punching my face while having us move around in fast motion. At his last attempt, I blocked his punch, slamming him against a sturdy trunk of a tree. He had a lot of strength. I got up quickly, just in time to dodge the attack coming at me. My elongated razor claws dived deep at him at my fastest speed, tearing open his neck. Lucius groaned as his claws grazed the sides of my ribs. He attacked me brutally, nibbling on my neck. I broke free and aimed again for his wounded neck with my elongated claws. I attacked him, clawing at his stomach. His leather vest ripped open as he growled. I bared my fangs at him and ripped his flesh out. I pounced at him but he evaded, and we engaged in another chase and fight. Lucius charged at me more fiercely and viciously than he did before. His fangs bruised my skin and my neck. I threw him off me. He was bleeding profusely, and before me, he shifted into his brown wolf. I gave Riker full control, shifting and getting down on all four paws. Lucius growled, charging at me with his canines. I moved, charging at him with matching speed. We leapt in the air, and Riker and I barred our claws into him, tearing deep into his furry brown skin. Blood splatters everywhere, smearing the earth. Before we landed ungracefully on the earth, Riker's sharp canines clung hard at his neck, never letting go as we attempted to rip its head off its body. Lucius Wolf whimpered, badly wounded and losing so much blood. With a little more tugging by Riker, we managed to make a terminal injury on his neck, almost successfully having its head off. Lucius's wolf whimpered again, shaking on the ground until it stopped moving. His terminal injuries forced his wolf to shift back to his human form. Lucius was a mess, bleeding from everywhere. I shifted back to my human form. I moved to his motionless body, placing a finger on his wounded neck. I couldn't feel his pulse. He was dead. Lucius Colasso was dead. I was up, my amber eyes taking in his lifeless body for the last time when one of the warriors mind-linked me that Thea had escaped. I shut my eyes. I knew this would happen. He had broken her free. And I knew Thea Chrysler, the first person she would go after was Sheila. But I wasn't worried. I knew exactly what the outcome would be, and Thea may not make it through the night. I hastened towards the witch's quarters, and before I could reach the quarters, my eyes took in both Thea and my mate, Sheila, from afar. Sheila had Thea's battered and almost lifeless body against the tree, Her sharp claws were digging into Thea's chest. From the other side of the woods, I saw Thea's lover move speedily, aiming for Sheila. I moved quickly, crashing hard against him, tossing him against a tree. I couldn't possibly describe my emotions when I learned about his betrayal this morning. I had suspected it when he went into Thea's dungeon at midnight. But frankly, hearing of his betrayal from Sheila's lips broke me. I would never have expected it to be him. Not even in my wildest thought would I have considered him. He pulled up from the ground, but before he could stand properly, I gripped him by his neck. "Killian, don't!" I heard Sheila's voice from behind. Sheila had been the reason I fought the urge and rage to confront him all morning. I had questions. I wanted to look him straight in the eyes, asking him how he could possibly betray us all, and endanger the lives of the people he grew up with, claiming to be family. My eyes didn't break away from his traitorous ones. "How could you betray us all?" I held his dark gaze, even his name found it difficult to leave my lips. "Mason," I bit out. His hands tightened around my large hands that gripped his throat. "Thea is my mate, Killian," he struggled to set himself free. Precisely my point, I held on to him tighter. "She's your mate. You should have said something the second you found out, instead of becoming her accomplice, and betraying the pack. Do you think I was enjoying it?" He broke out of my grip, attacking me with his fist. But I dodged it. "I had to put up with you, my very own mate, acting as though she was yours and treating her as worthless as a scum. And whose fault was that? If you had come to me, none of these mess would have happened and Thea would be dead. Think whatever you want, Killian, but Thea is my mate and you of all people should understand what that means." I had no choice. I understood what that meant. Sheila was my life and whatever the case be, I would choose her over the world if the need came. But I also knew what I felt when I thought there was something between Sheila and Kaiser. I couldn't even begin to imagine how Mason could have felt every time I was with Thea. I would die before any other male touched Sheila. "Thea is pregnant with my pup. Please don't kill her," he turned to Sheila, who was now having Thea by the throat. "I'm really sorry, Mason." Sheila held Thea tighter by the neck, making Thea groan in pain. "Your child is dead," her words sounded into the darkness. I felt Mason become still. "What? Thea killed him. She channeled its magic and sucked every life from it," Sheila added, tossing Thea's body against the rugged earth. Thea collapsed on it, coughing out blood. Mason rushed to her. "Thea," his voice was vibrating with emotions as he held Thea's battered body in his arms. "You didn't, please tell me you didn't." Thea clung onto him tightly, nudging closer to his ears. Mason," she coughed in a whisper. This isn't over. I need you." "That's the least you could do," she muttered, barely above a whisper. Her brown eyes now pulled up to stare deeply into Mason's eyes. "That's the least you could do, you worthless." She gripped his face roughly, her brown irises ignited brown flames and she began channeling Mason to get her strength back. Before I could move, Sheila ripped her off him, using her magic on Thea. Sheila's eyes were on Thea, and she began choking on her blood, screaming in pain, crumbling to her knees. Her screams filled the air, as she was writhing in so much pain, bleeding from her eyes, her nose, and almost everywhere. Whatever Sheila was doing to her had her in a lot of agonizing pain. Thea's body was trembling, as she brought her hands to her chest, as if in an attempt to stop her heart from jumping out from her chest. Stop, she spoke in a whisper. I could feel her life escaping from her. And with one final sound from her lungs, Thea collapsed against the ground. Dead. Killian's point of view, it was already morning, and the sun appeared above the eastern horizon. I moved past the mess on the ground, scattered around the pack. Lifeless bodies of Lucius's army of both rogues and witches. More than half of his army was all dead, few escaped while a few were taken as prisoners. Lucius was dead. His death gave me great joy and satisfaction. Finally, he was able to pay for every wrong he did to Sheila. I felt a rush of calmness within me. We did not only win the war Lucius started, but we also managed to put an end to the terrible things that had been occurring in the pack, along with Thea. I left the castle and joined Morgan at the pack house where the warriors were disposing of the bodies. How are things going? I turned to Morgan, whose green eyes were already on me. The outcome is better than I had imagined. We lost a few warriors, while the wounded ones are being taken care of by the pack's physician, and the witches, he voiced. I'll make preparations for the burial rites of those we lost, I said. What are we going to do with him? Morgan asked with raised brows. He didn't need to say his name, I knew exactly who he was talking about. Mason. I had asked myself that question countless times. Presently, Mason was being held in custody at the castle. Only a few knew about his betrayal and the role he played in helping Thea accomplish all her plans. His silence and actions had placed the entire pack in danger countless times, resulting in the loss of many innocent lives from the pack. Mason deserved to be punished as well, and the punishment for his actions and betrayal by the rules of the pack was instant death. But does he really deserve it? Frankly, I didn't know. But one thing I knew was if I had been in a situation to choose between Sheila and the entire world, I would choose her. Always. And that was exactly what Mason did. He chose his mate. And in a way, Thea used him as well to accomplish all her evil plans, which Sheila and the pack was a victim of. But Mason as well as a victim. I sighed, shaking my head. I haven't decided yet. And the court isn't aware of his involvement yet. Morgan nodded. I'm just really glad this nightmare is over. I smiled at him. Me too, brother. I left the pack house, sauntering to the witch's quarters. Sheila was there, and there was someone else I wanted to see. I reached the courtyard, and from a distance in one of the courts, I sighted Enzo with the very person I wanted to see. Kaiser Black. I approached them, nodding my head to Lorenzo, and my eyes fell on Kai's deep hazel. Look who we have here, Kaiser muttered under his breath, but both Enzo and I could hear him. I was looking for you, I said to him, and Lorenzo excused himself. You've found me. Don't tell me you are here to personally kick me out of your territory. Kaiser's eyes dwelt on me, as they regarded me with the usual glint of hate. He leaned slightly against the pillar. I didn't come all the way here for that, I said, sounding calmer than I expected, as I struggled with the words about to let loose from my lips. Thank you. I could sniff the scent of your warriors around the pack. They also helped in winning this war. Don't be mistaken. I didn't bring my warriors because of you. They were only here to protect my sister. I wouldn't give a f**k if your pack burnt to the ground and became nothing more than ashes. Kaiser's voice alone was enough to convey his true emotions to me. And I understood. I knew what he did changed nothing between our packs, but despite the hate between us, he helped, and that's what I chose to see. I know you probably didn't want to help, and I know you did it for your sister, but that doesn't matter. You helped anyway, so thank you, I uttered, and Kaiser was about to say something but stopped immediately. Sheila walked to us. I should leave now, sister, he went to Sheila, embracing her, before escaping into the woods. Sometimes I wonder just how he sneaks into my territory unseen. I pulled my attention away from him, and back to Sheila, wrapping my arms around her. Thank you, I whispered against her lips, digging her soft body deeper into my chest. Sheila's perfectly shaped brows creased. What for? A smile found my lips, inhaling deeply. I didn't even know where to start. I was just being thankful for everything. My hands cupped her tender rosy cheeks. For everything, Sheila, I said, kissing her sweet soft lips gently. I love you, I whispered slowly through our link. Sheila's point of view. I weaved my way through the crowds of people grinding on the dance floor, swaying to the blasting rhythm of the beats that sounded loudly throughout the pack. The neon lamps that were decorated all around the hall illuminated the people's fancy dresses and masks. It was a masquerade ball in which many delightful guests from our region and beyond graced the pack with their presence. I joined Brielle, Ria, and the girls on the dance floor, allowing my body to sway to the rhythm of the beats. I was having so much fun. It was the first time since the war the pack was throwing a feast. And it was well deserved. Just the thought of having nothing to worry about was gratifying and absolutely marvelous. And I loved it. I wanted things to be like this. Always. The gates of my eyes were shut closed, as I kept swaying my body around, moving my hips around when I felt strong arms grip them. I moaned internally at the sweet sparks that ignited against the thin velvet dress I was wearing. His strong hands began to glide up and down my hips, providing a sweet sensation to my body that I found myself leaning back into his arms. I felt his arms snake around my waist, digging me closer to his hard-toned chest. His lips found my neck, assaulting it with pleasing kisses that forced me to throw my head backward, giving him full access. My body was vibrating with an insane need that I had no name for. He spun me around firmly, holding me closer in his strong arms and muscular body. My eyes fell briefly on the mask that was covering half of his face. My body burned for more as he skillfully ran his hands up and down my body for the sweet stimulation I craved for. I didn't let go. My slender hands clutched hard onto his neck, caressing his broad shoulder blades. And with much vigor, his lips captured mine. Every kiss of his held a similar need and want. I kissed him back harder and suddenly, the music stopped. I gasped, breaking free from his kiss, backing a breath away to allow myself some air. I lifted my eyes to the mask that covered his face, locking his gaze with his obsidian black eyes, and in the middle was a blinding torch of golden flames. It was him, the beast from my dreams. The Dark Lord himself. My body became numb and frozen in his arms immediately. I was unable to pull away from those bright golden irises of his that were regarding me with the most fascinating stare. My heart began to pound hard in my ears as I jerked away from his arms. I glanced around the hall and everyone became still, as if frozen in time. He stood still, watching me with a heated gaze for a while, before taking slow calculated steps closer to me. His tall body towering over me. I looked up at him through my long lashes as he leaned closer to me so that I could feel his musky breath on me. Our surroundings began to change. The sea of bodies that surrounded us began to vanish from sight, and in less than a second, we were no longer at the grand hall. We were somewhere else, in a large court with chairs arranged in a circular order. The place was dark. Only a few torches were lit around. My heartbeat skyrocketed as I glanced around frantically. The court had tall black windows that fought against any form of light that attempted to seep inside. Then slowly, my eyes fell on the large symbol that was carefully engraved on the wall. It was a detailed drawing of a black dragon that symbolizes the circle. My eyes widened. "Welcome home, my beloved," he whispered almost seductively in my ears. "No. No. What is happening?" Sheila's point of view. My heart was jumping in my chest and suddenly, I couldn't breathe, as his golden irises bored down at me with an indescribable emotion in his depth. I shot upright on my bed, my hair and body damp from sweat under my night dress. It was just a dream. I swallowed several deep breaths, placing my hand over my chest as I tried to calm my heavy panting. But I just couldn't. I couldn't even quell the vibrations from my body. I didn't know if it was from fear or confusion. It's been a long time since Lucius' abrupt war I had one of these dreams. And that was almost 3 weeks ago. I had spelled my dreams and ensured whatever madness was going on in there stopped, and it did. Or at least, I thought it did. I sighed, resting my elbows on my thighs while using my hands to rub my face. My heart and thought were in an uproar. I kept on swallowing some air, as my body vibrated more. I couldn't lie, for the first time in my life, I felt angst. Even Adi felt the same way. Something about this dream was both wrong on different levels, and at the same time, confusing and terrifying. I jerked on the bed in shock from hearing the knock that came at the door. It took a short while before I could speak. "Come in," the door pushed open, and Ria stuck her head in between the door. "What? You are not ready?" she voiced with a frown, kicking the door a little so that she could walk in properly with the large box that stood in her hands. "Oh Ria, I was undoubtedly happy she was here." She moved to the table, dropping the box before coming to the bed. The second she was within my reach, I collapsed in her arms, craving a warm embrace, with hopes to stop whatever was going on in my body and mind. "Sheila, what's going on?" I heard her speak softly, leaning further into my embrace. But I didn't speak. I couldn't possibly begin to explain anything. She held on to me for a while before we pulled apart. The vibrating from my body had turned down, and I was grateful for the fact that I had more control over my emotions or this place would be in complete ruins. "What happened?" Ria's question came at me, her tone laced with worry. "Oh, forgive me, please," I brushed my face with my palm. "It's nothing," she spoke softly, staring at me. "Are you all right?" I nodded. Just a bad dream, I managed to say, and Ria's smile appeared. Well, that's nothing. It's just a dream. And good thing I came just in time. You've been sleeping for hours, and the Alpha asked me to check up on you. At her words, I became aware of everything around me. I was in the chamber Killian and I now share. My eyes fell onto the draperies, folded against each other, allowing me to see only a little through the window. My eyes widened. It was way past noon. I can't believe I slept so much. Alpha Killian wanted you to have more rest. He said you were exhausted. She spoke quickly as if reading my thoughts. I nodded, pulling out from the bed. Oh, yes. Before I forget, I have something that would put you in a good mood. She pointed at the box. I raised a brow. What's in there? Your dress and everything you'll need for the ball, Ria muttered, almost screaming from excitement. What ball? I blurted out absent-mindedly. As the words left my lips, I remembered. My blue eyes shot up, as my racing heart mounted a race, and panic settled right away. Sheila, Ria was up immediately from the bed, rushing to me. No, I'm fine, I stopped her halfway in a breathless voice. I'll be right back. I hurried to the washing room, splashing some water on my face as I fought hard to control myself. My eyes fell on the mirror in front of me. No matter how I tried, nothing was working. I had completely forgotten about tonight's feast. It was a ball. We had exhausted ourselves and spent yesterday making preparations for it, as many guests would be attending from the council and within North Central and beyond. I pressed a hand to my chest, struggling to breathe. My eyes never left my reflection in the mirror as my emotions kept spiraling out of control, and in an instant, a sharp sound echoed within the corner walls and several cracks appeared in the mirror, splitting me into several reflections of myself. Snap out of this! It's just a dream. Just a dream. Only a dream and nothing more, I repeated, my eyes not breaking free from the several reflections in the mirror as I tried to convince myself that the terrible feeling in my chest had nothing to do with my dream. I sighed, feeling my body and emotions calming down. It was only a dream, like the others I had back in my brother's pack. I had spelled myself heavily, so, I didn't understand why it came back. No matter how much I convinced myself, I couldn't lie to myself nor dismiss the feeling in my chest. 80 was right. None of these were normal, and I couldn't stay quiet. I needed help. I stripped from my night clothing, opting for a cold shower, and swiftly, I was done. I donned a robe and stepped out. I didn't find Ria there, but Killian was waiting for me. He came to me, kissing me. I kissed him back. I couldn't stop the guilt that tightened my chest as the image of me kissing him flashed through my mind, and I abruptly broke free from Killian's kiss. Are you all right? He asked, his thumb gently holding my chin, and I had no choice but to stare into his beautiful eyes. It's nothing, Killian, I just had a terrible dream. I gazed up at him, surprised. Ria told me, and she was worried, and that worried me. I smiled weakly. It's just a dream. I'll be fine, I voiced, knowing I didn't believe any of my words. How normal is it to have dreams about someone I've never met? Not very normal. And I had told you, didn't I? Came 80's voice in my head. But I didn't dare argue with her. I had no strength for that, and she was absolutely right. You don't look well. Killian's large palm cupped my cheek. We could cancel the ball and have it when you feel better. I would have loved that. Sincerely, I wasn't in any mood to party and receive guests. It would be great if we cancelled it, and also selfish on my part. Everyone in the pack was looking forward to it. This was the first time we were having a party since the war, and I didn't want to ruin the fun for everyone, and a lot of people were already informed and would be attending. Everyone has put in so much work and time already. We can't cancel it, I said. Killian brushed back the damp locks of my hair that stuck to my face. What's the point of having a party if you don't feel well? It's not a problem. I will cancel it. Don't do that. It's fine. I just need to shake this off and prepare for tonight, I said, kissing him. You have many things to tend to, so go now, I'll join you soon. I pecked his lips, sending him off. I got dressed in one of my blue dresses, giving my hair the attention it needed, allowing it to fall down my shoulders. I fastened my ankle boots and hurried out of my chamber, heading straight to Valerie's spell room. I used my magic and opened the door, suddenly stopping abruptly at the door, seeing the mess around the spell room. Valerie, what's happening? I went to where she was next to one of her shelves, tossing around some of the books on it. Don't mind me, I'm searching for something. She sent a glance my way, focusing back on the shelf. I looked around at the mess created by several books on the floor. Whatever she was looking for was probably very important. What brings you here? I don't know if I'm going insane, but there's something that's been bothering me, Val, and I feel it in my bones. It's bad, I said, and Valerie's eyes darted to me. She stopped what she was doing, taking a good look at me. What is it? She asked softly, and I sighed. I had a terrible dream. Or rather, I've been having some dreams, I began as Valerie's purple eyes held onto my words. And every one of them is about him. I paused, wrapping my hands around my arms. The Dark Lord. What? Sheila's point of view. Valerie's blue eyes became heated on me. What are you saying? She shifted from the shelf, giving me her full attention. The dream started not long ago, and I thought I had put an end to it. I started, but Valerie cut me off. What do you mean by putting an end to it? She asked, and I could feel the uneasiness in her entire aura, and earnestly it was affecting me. I spelled myself, stopping whatever madness that was, and for a while, it worked, but somehow it's back, I said, looking her in the eyes. I had a dream about him again, and oh, Val, it felt so real, I confessed as the bad feeling in my chest grew more. Valerie placed two of her fingers against her temple. I could see the flash of fear in her eyes, but she was trying desperately to hide it. All right. Let's calm down, Sheila, she muttered, leading me away from the shelf, and back to her table. How can you be sure it was the Dark Lord? She asked, regarding me. Firstly, it's not even possible. You don't know him and have no idea how he looks, so tell me, how can you be so sure it's him? I shook my head. That's the problem, Valerie, that's exactly what has me like this. I have never met the man in my whole years of existence, so it's remotely impossible to have dreams about him. But he's the one. I really don't know how I even know this, but it's him, I muttered, unable to keep my legs still. I began stalking the floors. Valerie was quiet. Awfully and disturbingly quiet. Tell me every one of those dreams, Sheila, she came to me, pulling my hand gently to the chairs around the table. I settled on one of the chairs opposite hers. I didn't even know how to start. Every one of those dreams involved me making love to the Dark Lord, a man after my very life, I sighed, meeting her deep purple eyes. There's nothing much to say. In every one of those dreams, I either find myself kissing him or making love to him. I shut my eyes. I didn't understand these stupid feelings that always managed to befall me whenever I had dreams about him. I had already found my mate, so why was I feeling all of these? I hated it. Does Killian know about these dreams? I pulled my eyes open and they fell silently on Valerie. I shook my head. Killian would go ballistic if he knew, and I didn't want to share something like that with him now when I had no idea what was going on myself. And besides, he looked incredulously happy. These few weeks after the war had made him different. More cheerful, and the happiest I had ever seen. I didn't want this to spoil his great mood and that of the pack. I exhaled deeply. I was strained both mentally and physically. My eyes met Valerie's. This is bad, isn't it? I can feel it. And with tonight's ball, I'm a nervous wreck. I have this weird feeling from last night's dream. I remembered the dream and told Valerie about it. In the dream, he was here, right here in the pack. That alone is terrifying. Valerie pulled up from her seat and began pacing. She was silent and seemed to have fallen into deep thought. I let her be and simply watched her movements. And then, she stopped suddenly, turning to gaze at me. Sheila, I won't lie, what you just told me is something unusual and dangerous. Both for you and the pack. Valerie's words made a knot in my chest, and I swallowed a lump in my throat, nudging her to continue. The Dark Lord isn't someone who appears in dreams. I shook my head, stopping her. It's him, Valerie, and I believe you. And that's all the more reason why this is dangerous. Having such dreams about someone like him is worse than it sounds. I suggest we tell everyone, she uttered, locking eyes with me. By everyone you mean your brothers, Killian, and maybe the council, she added, making me sigh again. I pulled my palm to my face, hearing a sigh leave Valerie's lips as well. I know your concerns about tonight's ball, Sheila, especially with how your last dream turned out. I lifted my head to her. That was what contributed to my crazed emotions now. Many people from around the region and beyond will be attending tonight's ball. Our defenses and spells protecting the pack will be weakened, and just anyone will be able to get through. Just anyone. I didn't like this one bit. Oh, goddess! I was up from my chair, realizing I made a mistake insisting Killian shouldn't cancel the ball. Sheila, you have to calm down. Valerie was beside me, and I was doing my hardest to tune my emotions down. Don't worry. The pack will be protected tonight, I swear on my life. Just be calm. Nothing out of the ordinary will happen tonight, it'll just be one of those balls we've had. Valerie's words attempted to soothe me, and they almost did. but I just couldn't get rid of the tug piercing my chest. I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Thank you so much, Valerie," I said, embracing her. I felt her hands around me briefly, before we pulled apart. "Now, go and get ready, and have fun," she said, pushing out a lip-tight smile, but that couldn't fool me. She had a share of worry and maybe fear in her eyes. But I smiled nonetheless, leaving the spell room, and soon I stepped out into the evening sky. I haven't had anything to eat all morning, and honestly, I didn't care. Nothing would be able to go down my mouth in this state I was in. I left the witch's quarters and went back to the castle in search of Morgan. I had to ensure the pack isn't completely vulnerable during the ball. I couldn't find him, so I headed to Killian's office, finding Killian in a meeting with Morgan, Alan, Xavier, Jax, and some ranking warriors in the pack. I joined them. Killian was already instructing them about the patrolling shifts tonight, to keep the pack protected even during the ball. I sighed in relief, and now he turned to Jax. Jax was now the new head of the defense team in the pack. That was Mason's position, but with what happened during the war, Jax took over. Killian's final decision on Mason really took me by surprise. I guess Morgan too. But we accepted it. Mason was asked to leave the pack. Since no one in the court and pack was aware of his betrayal and involvement in the pack, it was easier to let him leave without facing the punishment that would have been decided by the court. Only Killian, Morgan, Alan, and I knew about Mason and everything he did to help his mate, Thea. What Mason had done to the pack was cruel, but regardless, in a way, he was also a victim of Thea. It would have been awful having him lose his life, after losing his pup and mate. Regardless of who Thea was, the pain of losing one's mate was unbearable. I shook away from my thoughts the second the warriors began to exit the office, leaving just Killian and me. "It's not long before guests begin trooping into the pack," Killian said, glancing at the darkness that had settled in from outside the window as he came to me. "You should get ready," his arms covered me. "Yeah, I wanted to see you first," I pecked his lips, and an ecstatic smile appeared on his lips. "Missed me already?" he asked, smiling ear to ear. I couldn't help but smile. "Don't flatter yourself, Killian Reed," I pecked his lips and he deepened it into a kiss. He pulled away to allow me to breathe, gazing into my eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, caressing my cheek, tenderly so that I leaned into his sweet touch. "We have to talk, Killian, but after tonight's ball," I said. "All right," he whispered against my lips, kissing me. "I just want you to be happy tonight, Sheila," he told me. "I will be," I sounded, not even convinced with my words, and Killian felt it too. Before he could say anything, I drew a finger to his lips. "I have to get ready, Killian," I kissed him, leaving the office. I sauntered to my chamber, locking the door behind me. My eyes fell on the gold dress that stood on the rack. It was beautiful. I moved closer to it, running my fingers down its embroidered corset at the top. It matched the white and gold masquerade mask standing next to the dress. I sighed, my heartbeat fastening. I didn't know why, but everything about tonight's ball gave me the chills. Sheila's point of view, I was all dolled up already. It was night time, and the party had started. Many guests from far regions had made appearances already. And some members of the council had attended the ball already. I stood in front of the tall mirror that held my reflection. I looked really beautiful in the dress Killian picked for me. It was a gold floor-length mermaid-style dress with an embroidered corset at the top. It was stunning and matched my white and gold masquerade mask. I loved it. The door pulled open and Betrayal stepped in. She was all dressed up as well, and her long black hair fell down her shoulders, stylishly. "It's time," she smiled, joining me in the mirror. "There has never been so many people in the pack like tonight," she said. "Tonight's going to be so much fun." "Yeah," I whispered to myself. I turned to her, taking her in. There was something different about her. In a good way. "You look beautiful," I told her, examining her carefully. Betrayal smiled, "Thanks. You too." I wasn't only talking about her gorgeous dress and look, there was a slight change in her aura and scent. I moved closer to her, taking her hand in both of my hands. Betrayal's eyes widened at my sudden action. As I held her hand, my eyes shot up and slowly moved to hers. I couldn't hold back the smile eager to surface. "Betrayal," I called, almost in a whisper. I could feel it. The life in her. "You are pregnant?" Her eyes enlarged, shocked. "How did you know?" "No one knows yet, not even Alan." "It doesn't matter, Betrayal. I'm so happy for you." I pulled her in for a hug. "Thank you, Sheila," she voiced, holding a smile of hers. Then there was a knock at the door, and Ria popped her head in. "Alpha Killian asked me to fetch you," she said, and I adjusted my dress, while Betrayal helped me fasten my white and gold masquerade mask in place. My wavy brown hair was pulled back into a low messy bun and I had a few loose curls framing my face, around my mask. "All right, let's go." I left the chamber with Betrayal and Ria. We made our way to the grand hall on the ground floor where the party had already started. There were a lot of bodies staring up as we descended gracefully down the stairs. Killian was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. His deep amber crystals gleamed brightly as I approached him. "You look absolutely gorgeous." He took my hand and pulled it together with his lips, kissing it. "You look dashing as well," I said, smiling, linking my arms in his, and we made our way deeper into the hall crowded with so many people, having masquerade masks on their faces. Killian and I strutted to the center of the hall. He cleared his throat, gaining everyone's attention. "Members of the Black Blood Pack and esteemed guests. Thank you for dressing up and looking stunning tonight to celebrate with us. There is enough snacks and the bar is free and open. Let's not keep the dance floor waiting," he shouted with joy, and the crowd applauded, screaming with joy. The hall became more alive as the best kind of music was played by the entertainers. Many couples covered the dance floor. Killian swerved to me. "Can I have this dance?" he muttered, sending his hand to me. I took it and he pinned me close to his chest, and we began dancing, alongside the sea of bodies. For the first time today, I felt myself become calm, and I was starting to enjoy the ball. But everything shattered the instant I felt my body become stiff, as though I was being watched. I scanned the hall, feeling a pair of heated gazes on me. But I couldn't tell where exactly it came from, or who it was from, or whether maybe I was just being paranoid because of everything that had happened today. I gripped hard onto Killian, trying my best to focus on him instead. We continued dancing until the music was over. Some alphas from the South region and some members from the council came up to meet Killian and me, requesting to see Killian briefly. Killian insisted I join in, but I shook my head, insisting he went with them while I stepped out for a moment to get some air, with hopes I'd manage to see Valerie. She hadn't made her appearance at the ball yet, and I couldn't stop my worrisome nerves from kicking in. I watched Killian leave with his company, and my eyes went around the large hall once again. From a great distance, I sighted Valerie. She walked into the hall with a little speed. She wasn't dressed for the party, she was still wearing the red silken dress she had on earlier today, and she had worn a red cloak over her dress. She approached Lorenzo, who was among the crowd, and with similar speed, both she and Lorenzo hastened out of the court. Something was wrong. I could almost hear the words in my thoughts, and that, unfortunately, raised the fast rate of my beating heart. I began to move within the crowd, heading for the exit in hopes of catching up with Valerie and Enzo, when the music changed into a slow and seductive melody, inviting more couples to the dance floor. I kept weaving my way through the sea of bodies when I felt a hand clamp my wrist. I gasped at the uncomfortable coldness, my body swerving around, slamming into that of the stranger before me. "May I have this dance, beautiful?" My eyes fell into a pair of icy ruby irises. I creased my brows, unable to recognize him. He was wearing black leather pants and a black shirt with a black mask studded with black diamonds that covered most of his face. I jerked my wrist away from his hold. Even with the black leather gloves he had on, I could still feel the intensity of his cold touch. "Who are you?" I asked. His gaze was intense on me, as it roamed my body seductively. Strangely, there was a certain familiarity in them. "One dance and you'll find out." He closed the gap between us, and before his hands could touch me, I stopped them midair. "If you value your life as much, you would back off." "I'm taken," I said, already starting to get irritated, and the way his eyes flashed at my words, I got the feeling my words somewhat infuriated him. "Do you really believe that to be the truth?" he said, his tone holding a question in it. His words confused me, but I decided not to create a scene, and simply ignore him. "Excuse me," I turned to leave, but he grabbed me by the waist, slamming my body to his in a manner that forced my gaze into his eyes. I was in his arms, and I swear to the goddess, it took me everything to be able to fight the tremble that had begun from deep within my bones as I bored into his ruby eyes. And for a fearful, yet impossible second, it felt as though I was staring into a pair of golden eyes that had always infiltrated my dreams. It felt as though I was staring straight into the Dark Lord's eyes. But it wasn't him. It couldn't be him. This stranger's aura screamed werewolf only, unlike the Dark Lord who was rumored to be a mixling. My hands fell on both sides of his arm as my touch burned him with my magic at the surface. I pushed away from his arms. He moved his head to one side, studying me intensely in fascination. I hated this feeling in my chest. His gaze alone made me squirm as his eyes sought out my soul from his black diamond mask that hid his face, and the tension between us thickened. "Is something wrong?" Morgan's words pierced through whatever bubble of madness had imprisoned me with this stranger. Morgan stopped beside me, placing a hand calmly on my wrist. There was a wicked flash of jealousy in this mysterious stranger's depths as his eyes briefly fell on my wrist where Morgan had held me. "No," I muttered to Morgan, glancing briefly at the stranger. His eyes were stuck on me only, with mischief visible in them. "Come with me, Morgan." Morgan and I began to make our way through the crowd. I could still feel the heated gaze of the stranger, almost boring a hole in the back of my head. I glanced back to where we had left him and he wasn't there, neither could I find him in the crowd. It was almost as if he had vanished completely. Oh, goddess! I had to find Valerie. Sheila's point of view. I weaved my way through the crowd, with Morgan's hand still on my wrist. "What happened back there?" he asked me with his green irises on me. I shook my head. "Nothing," that was all I had to say. I didn't understand what had happened back there. All I could feel was the vibrations within me, and the fearful feeling in my chest that was suffocating me. I took off my mask. "Hey Sheila, take a deep breath." Morgan pulled me to a stop as he could hear the deafening banging of my heart against my chest. "I will, but first, I must find Valerie." I left him in a haste and headed for the tall golden doors which led me outside into the cold darkness. I couldn't find Valerie nor Lorenzo. I gripped my heavy dress with my hands, pulling it up a little so I could move hastily. I was about to head for the witch's quarters when I felt Killian's presence. His scent encamped me as he held me close to him. "I've been looking everywhere for you. Have you seen Valerie?" I asked, and his brows folded. "No," he paused. "Did something happen?" He rushed quickly. I looked around the peaceful surrounding, as there was a large crowd outside as well, having drinks and enjoying the party. "I don't think so," I shook my head. "Any news from the patrolling warriors? Did they notice anything unusual?" Killian's face crippled the more. "No," he cupped my cheeks. "Sheila, this is a party and it's meant for everyone to have fun and worry less about serious matters such as patrolling. The warriors are doing their job, and you should do yours, and have a good time." "Oh Killian," I wrapped my hands around him, inhaling his deep, intoxicating scent. It managed to calm my nerves. I brought my lips to him, kissing him. "I want you to have a great time, Sheila. Your emotions have been out of control all morning and it worries me." I didn't know what else to do, so I invited someone tonight, he said. His words confused me a little. "Who did you invite, Killian?" Killian placed a hand on my back, leading us away from the hall and into the darkness. "Your brother, Kaiser," he said, as we kept walking. "You invited Kai?" I asked again, completely shocked and unable to believe that Killian could invite him. Killian stopped walking, and he nodded. "Yes. But he is unable to come in. Many members from the council attended tonight's ball and are inside. It'll be very suspicious if Kaiser came in." My lips pressed firmly against each other, and I didn't bother to fight the tears that stung my eyes. I guess I was just overly emotional tonight. But what Killian did tonight warmed my heart. I embraced him tightly. "Thank you," I whispered into his ears. "I really mean it, Killian." I pulled away, and Killian's eyes gleamed, with a small grin on his lips. I knew Kaiser couldn't come in, but it was enough that he had invited my brother, a black whom he claimed to hate. If only the situation was different and I didn't have to keep my identity hidden. But the council hasn't stopped searching for me. For some reason, Leonardo doesn't trust them. He believes someone within the council was working for that man, the one I'd rather not name again. Just thinking about him sends sick shivers down my spine. I shook out from my thoughts, and Killian pointed to a tall tree. I could already tell Kaiser was behind it. I left Killian and walked deeper into the darkness, closer to the tree. Kai, I hurried to him, as soon as he came into full view. I sprawled my arms around him, falling into his arms. I can't believe you are here, I said, pulling away as Kaiser took off the masquerade mask that was covering his face. Me neither. But here I am. He invited me, he muttered, holding the mask in one hand. And I'm really happy. Yet. I can imagine. He did it for you. But what's wrong? Killian sounded urgent and worried about you. What happened? Kai asked. Oh, Kai. It's a long story. And I will tell you everything once the party is over. But first, I need your help. Please find Valerie and Lorenzo. Help me find out what's going on. She came in a hurry and left with Enzo. I know something is going on, I said, and my brother studied me with his worried green eyes. What happened, Sheila? I can feel it, you are unsettled, he said. I will tell you everything when you get back. Just find Valerie now. Please, brother, I pleaded, and reluctantly, he nodded. Kaiser placed back his mask on his face, fastening it quickly. Go back in, quickly, he added, and I nodded as he faded into the darkness. I held my dress, moved back to the castle, and headed to the hall. There I met Morgan and Alan in front of the tall golden doors of the hall. Have you seen Killian? I asked them. I badly wanted to see him. I don't think I could wait for the party to be over before I spoke to him. I haven't seen Alan began, but Morgan's voice sounded. There, he said, and I followed the direction of his gaze. It led me to Killian, and he was walking to us. His eyes fell on Alan, and then Morgan, before finally landing on me. Where did you run off to? He asked with his stare on me heated and lips holding a smirk. I need to see you, I told him, turning to Alan and Morgan. Thanks. Killian's hands were covered with leather gloves. He took my hand in his, leading us into the castle hallways. I needed somewhere private to speak to him, so I decided we should go to his office. I stepped in with Killian, locking the door behind me. He moved to the table at the end of the wall, taking a cursory look around. Killian, I called his attention to me, moving to the table. Killian's eyes fell on me, and gently he removed the leather gloves covering his hands and tossed them on the table. I know I told you we should talk after the party, but I can't wait, I said, feeling Killian's arms around me, his palm gliding up and down the exposed skin of my arms, creating a sweet feeling. Tell me whatever you want, darling, he urged, moving closer to him, that only a breath stood between us. I've been having some weird dreams lately, I said, and suddenly, his movements on my arms stopped as his fathomless amber eyes gazed down at me, impelling me to continue. It's it's about the Dark Lord, I forced out, lifting my head to Killian's. And the look on his face hadn't changed, or he was simply masking his emotions cause I couldn't feel him inside of me. Interesting, he had an amusing grin on. Do tell me, darling, what sort of dreams? He asked, funnily, with the dark glint in the corners of his eyes. Killian, I'm being serious, I said in a serious tone. And so am I, he said, his eyes drinking me, in a manner that made my body heat up. What happened in those dreams of yours? He asked, his sweet breath fanning my lips. It's ridiculous. But don't get mad, Killian, I warned. In every one of those dreams, I was with him, kissing him. And I know exactly what you are going to say, but it was a dream and I had no control over it. And yes, it was him. I have never seen him, but I swear to the goddess, it was that. Killian still didn't say anything, and I couldn't feel anything from him. His hands moved from my arms and held both sides of my waist, digging me into his body. Do tell me, how do you feel about those dreams? His question surprised me. That was not what I was expecting from him. Killian, answer me, darling, he said, boring hard into my eyes as if wanting to take a peek at my soul. Nothing, I said. I didn't want to think about it. And I refused to. I loved Killian and I just wanted him. Killian's brows raised at my reply. But he didn't utter a word. He removed one of his hands from my waist, moving it up my body till it fell on my neck where his mark was. His eyes dwelt on it briefly, without as much touching it. Killian's hand fell on my cheek, and he began caressing it, while his other hand pinned my body against his. I released a moan as his lips kissed my jawline and his hands did things to my body. Kill, I wanted to say, but he placed a finger on my lips, stopping me. His face changed to one of passion and the intensity he bored at me was thick and made me feel unfamiliar things. I became still in his arms, holding my breath as his eyes flickered down to my lips, before meeting my gaze once more. He leaned closer and possessed my lips fiercely. I could feel the need and want in his kisses, but I didn't feel it back. My still body that seemed to have realized this became cold, and I broke free from his kiss. My blue eyes fell into his amber stones that I could tell weren't his. I couldn't move, my whole body became numb and stiff, and somewhere deep down, I could already tell who he was. His faux amber eyes glistened with mischief and he could tell I had caught him. I parted my lips, my eyes never breaking from his. You are not my mate, Killian, his face hardened, and the air around us became gravely cold. The amber glow in his eyes broke and I could see them. Those golden eyes of his that had always invaded my dreams. Oh, no.